just quickly switch over to the phone.
Okay, but you should be good.
Yeah,
so
it should be good. It's at 35%.
Oh, 35. Okay, good. Well, we'll try and do it.
It'll do half an hour anyway. We'll see how we get on.
Yeah. You might have to pop over for more juice than the other thing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, look, everyone, welcome to the Irish American Heritage Museum. Oh, Lord, this is our second evening with Aindrias, who's one of Ireland's top Shenanigans and bards and overall eccentric and eclectic storyteller. We're delighted to have him as he's going to share some kind of wit and wisdom from the west coast of Ireland and maybe tell us, a couple of stories and sing some songs. So enjoy it, everyone, and thank you for joining. And you can take it away.
Hey, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Liz. Great to see you, some of you again. How's things? I suppose a lot of you are muted, but we can unmute at the end of the end of each piece and see what the crack is. So I'm going to start off with a few tunes. It's midnight here in Ireland now, and tell me if you can see. And so I've got paraffin lamp here. I'll just turn it up a bit. So there. Be careful now. I'm on solar power here in a caravan in the west of Ireland. I'm down in and I've just been playing. It's a very starry night. I was just playing up in Kilfenora. You may have heard of the Kilfenora Ceilidh Band.
Oh, good. So you're keeping going from the Kilfenora tradition.
So I was just at a house party there.
Oh,
and
great.
Well, I wasn't really, obviously during COVID, we're not allowed to have a house party. There was just a few friends having an outside bonfire and a barbecue, just 3 or 4 people. But I played a few tunes. So it was just nice to kind of to warm up the fiddle. So it shouldn't be, it's still a bit cold, the fiddle likes when it's warm. And we call this time of the year, did you ever hear, Elizabeth, down in Kerry, you say it called the Scaravine? It's the weather you get the end of April. And the Scaravine, when people used to say, oh, mind know yourself in April, it's awful cold, mind you get the Scaravine or the Scaravine. I thought it was kind of like a disease or a flu or something. But actually it comes from Scaravine Amshire Guach, Scaravine Mina Guach. Like it's rough is the weather before the coming of the cuckoo, isn't it? It's all about before the cuckoo comes in spring. The cuckoo comes the end of spring, start of summer, end of April, early May. But it's actually really cold at night. So we've been down to -1 some nights here.
Oh, God.
So, so I've just been out in the cold. But I'm going to start off with a tune. The first tune is called The Mist-Covered Mountain, written by Junior Crean, a well-known fiddle player and storyteller from County Clare. And the second tune is The Battering Ram, which has a good old batter about it. And I'm just going to give a quick lump of rosin to the bow now. In there now. So it won't be too squeaky. So you can tell me, I'll turn up the paraffin lamp another bit now. Get the lash. All right, how's that? Thanks very much.
I know it looks like there's nobody on, but there is plenty. We're just all muted.
All right. Are you enjoying it?
Loving it.
You can tell anyone if they want to come in there, they can put up their hand or whatever.
Do you hear that, lads? You can unmute and clap along if you'd like.
They want to be. So I'm going to play a little tune now on the jaw harp. And some of you may have seen this instrument before. When they did the excavations in Dublin in 888, what they called the Millennium excavations, Dublin was celebrated 1,000 years as being a city in 1988. Again, 1,000 years after 888 would have been the early Vikings, because I suppose the Battle of Clontarf was 1014, which was Brian Baroud, the native Irish here from Clare, went up to fight the Danes, as they called them. But so they say that it could have come with the Vikings. I don't know, would that be Iron Age or Bronze Age? But anyway, I'll glance out a tune anyway with it, like. And I put a bit of lilting into this as well. So, can you hear it okay there?
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh,
Yoo-hoo!
good crack.
Yeah, it sounds so amazing, isn't it? To think a little piece of wire or metal can do that. Looks like a key. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of superstition associated with the jaw harps in Ireland. They often say that it was a shame or a curse to bring them inside. They were often hung outside on a hawthorn tree.
Mm.
even though in parts of Connemara they'd have them in the dresser. And if
Mm.
you ever hear the Irish language radio station Radio na Gaeltachta, they're 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the evening, the theme tune is like. So they have it was kind of like a poor person's instrument.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
often had it in the pocket. But you don't have, they're nice like this, but you don't have, you can't, if you played in a pub session, you won't really hear it.
Yes, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
great. Well, imagine a 1,000-year-old instrument there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll try a story.
Do.
Okay. Some of you might have heard, this is, I'll try not to make it too long now, but there's a story from this area about Liscannor Bay. And Liscannor Bay is in County Clare, obviously not far from Liscannor. And the story goes like this. Out across Liscannor Bay, not far from the seaside town of Lahinch, down deep down underneath the sea, there lies the sunken village of Kilstefeen. Kilstefeen is a sunken village that lies deep down under the sea. And every now and again, for no reason whatsoever, no time nor tide can tell, up from the sea will rise the town of Kilstefeen. And the first thing that comes above the water is, of course, the spire of the church of Kilstefeen and all the bells ringing. And people around here were told, run home, run home, run home. For if you saw the village rising up from under the waves and you heard the bells ringing, you'd surely die within the year. And that was the pishroke that was around here. That was the superstition. People would be told, run home, because you'd die within the year if you heard the bells ringing and you saw the church at Kilstefeen. Anyway, it happened. Happened to a family not far from here. Over the road there in Clahan, a beach village up the road there. There was two brothers. Oh, they were great musicians, the Didler and the Bronach. And the Didler was a happy kind of a fiddle player. He'd be he'd be always diddling happy old tunes. But the Bronach was a sad, melancholic kind of a musician. He was like, and anyway, they were arguing one night over, they had two different versions of a tune. And they were fighting and shouting all night and all the next day. And by the following evening, the blood was nearly covered in, the walls were nearly covered in tomatoes and eggs with the fighting that was going on. And the plates knocked off the dresser. They couldn't agree over a certain tune. It was a lovely tune. Some people would say that it was a queer version of Drowsy Maggie. Other people would say that it was Mrs. Crotty's version of The Reel with the Burl. And it went. But when it went to the high part of the tune, the Didler was didling up into a happy part of the tune, and the Bronach was going deep down into a sad part of the tune, and they were fighting all night. Anyway, late in the night it was, they decided that the only way they'd finally sort out who had the right version of the tune and who had the wrong version of the tune was they would row across the bay, across from Clahan, across Liscannor Bay to Barthraw, where there was a man there called the Murtoch Flanagan, a great concertina player, actually a relation of my own. And the Murtoch would have the proper version of this tune. So they agreed anyways, they pushed their little currach out onto the sea and they said, now whoever has the wrong version of this tune would have to row the back boat on his own. Oh, grand, anyway, and they rowed and they rowed and they rowed and they rowed out across. And it was late in the night, they got to the Murtoch Flanagan's house on the far side of the bay and they knocked on the door. And the Murtoch opened the door and said, well, gentlemen, God between us and all hand, but what has he here at this hour of the night? And they told him, we're fighting over the queer version of a tune. And we have two different halves of it. We want to find out which of us is right. Well, come in, so let you. So he brought them in and he raked up the fire. And on that note, I'll turn up my paraffin lamp now a bit. And he raked up the fire and he put on the kettle for tea. And they had a drop tea and they had their chats about news and stuff. And then he said, right, let's hear this tune. So the Didler started his tune and he went. Right, said Murtagh Flanagan. And now yourself, Bronach. And Bronach started, obviously the same first part. Oh my God, says Murtagh. Bronach, that queer second part you have, that second part of the tune, yours it's beautiful, but it's wrong. Oh, the Bronach was awful upset then, and he started to try and play the tune again, and he was getting astrapus, but no, the lads said, no, you have to accept, no, it's beautiful, but it's wrong. And then the Didler was happy didling another few tunes, and Murtagh playing the concertina, and they played late into the night, and another shot of poutine was put into the tea, and they drinking away. And it was late at night, like maybe 2 or 3 hours before the dawn, when they left the house. And of course, Bronach's version of the tune was wrong, so he had to row, and it was a tough row against the tide. And the Didler was drunk, so he fell asleep in the back of the boat. And rowed, he pulled against the tide, and the Bronach was pulling and pulling against the tide, and they were far out at sea, when suddenly, out of nowhere, what should happen but the wind blew. And a great big storm blew up out of nowhere, and suddenly he was above on a high wave and a low wave and a high wave and down on a low wave and a high wave looking down at him. And then he wakened and said, "Wake up to the Didler, wake up, Didler." But there was no awakening the Didler. He was drunk asleep at the back of the boat. And the Bronach tried as he might and pulled, and suddenly he was above on top of a high wave. And what should he see when he looks down? What rising up out of the sea was the spire of the church of Kilstefin, and all the bells ringing on it. And try as he might not look, but how could he not look? People that left his own life years ago, there they were calling him on. People he's recognised outside the church. That church in Kilstefin, the village of Kilstefin rising up out of the sea. Oh my God, he didn't know what to do then. It was like he was heading straight for Kilstefin itself. But then luckily a great big wave and caught him. Like the way you would see a surfer above on a surfboard. And next thing, just like that too, a great big wave brought him into the beach in Lahinch. And he pulled the boat up and he walked on the Didler. He said, "Didler, I've seen Kilstefin and all the bells ringing." The Didler was sad then because he knew his brother would die within the year. So they went up to a house and they dried themselves and had tea, and then they went home. And well, in the next few weeks, a strange thing happened. But the Didler, who had always been happy, well, he was sad now because he knew his brother would die within the year. And the Bronach, who was always sad, well, he was kind of happy because everybody was calling to the house and bringing him out to the pub and buying him drink, asking him questions. "What did you see below in Kilstefin? Did you see my cousin Hardee? What boats did you see tied up below?" And he was telling them all about the Mary Ann and the Magpie. These were 2 boats that went missing years ago. And about the treasure from the Spanish Armada that had landed up there, and all the things he had seen in the village of Kilstefin. And then one morning, the Didler came down for his breakfast. No sign of the Bronach. He went up, knocked on the Bronach's door. No sign of the Bronach in his room or even in the bed. He went down to the pier to look for the Bronach, but there was no sign of Bronach's currach anywhere to be found. So they had a bit of a search party. And there they found it, way off out at sea, floating up and down, was the Bronach's currach, but him gone back to Kilstefin. And the funny thing about it is, nowadays when they play that tune around here, it's the Bronach's version of the tune they play. So maybe it was him had the right version of the tune after all. Oh, thank you.
That's fantastic. It has
You like
everything
that
in it. very
Yeah, it's got
atmospheric.
everything in it. It's good crack.
Yeah, very good.
Anyone else want to come in there with any comments?
Jack might have had a question. Had you, Jack Callahan?
I did, Andreas. I'm in a jazz class here in the States, and
Oh, lovely.
the facilitator mentioned that he was in Ireland and he was listening to what he thought was a comparable jazz session, and the word lilting was mentioned, and I thought that maybe what you were doing, the set just before this, might be qualified as lilting. I was curious as to whether you thought that was so. The Gaelic word is spelled Coelmhar, pronounced Colar.
Ceolwar, it means musical. Like ceol is the Gaelic for music, and then ceolwar means musical.
Animated or vigorous, or is that something of that sort, perhaps?
Yeah, animated or vigorous, yeah. So lilting, you're right there, Jack. Yeah, lilting is the
lilting, right?
The mouth music, yeah.
Yeah, and that was what you were doing. It's like scatting in jazz here to the States.
Exactly, yeah. Scat and lilting are the same, really, and they'd be obviously, they just originate where it works for instrumentals where words might be too slow for a song. Like you can put songs to jigs and reels, but sometimes the instrumental music, if people want to dance, for example, so there's certain jigs like she do moyo, but when that gets faster, it goes diddly diddly diddly, so the words aren't really fast enough. Also, as you can imagine, with lilting or scatting, you can get away with more improvisation and more focus on the rhythm. So you can go, so you can get more, I don't want to misuse the term onomatopoeia, but you can become instrumental rather than vocal, because with words, if you're singing in English or Irish, there's a certain loyalty to the text. Whereas when you're lilting or scatting, it doesn't matter about words, and you don't even think about notes, obviously. It's very free form. So as you suggested there, I suppose the term ceolwar, meaning musical, is a perfect way to describe it.
God, that's great, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, and another term they use for it is perthrucht bail. Perthrucht, like the Irish for jig, is pert, like cost pert, and perthrucht bail means like jig of the mouth.
Yeah. That's a nicer one than the musical ceolwar, like.
Yeah, perthrucht bail, yeah. Well, like you'll hear sometimes in Irish, they'll do some songs, they'll go, Fifinna lo, Fifinna ladio, Fifinna lo, Fifinna ladio. And I'll be like, what does that mean? Is Fifinna lo, does it mean he has a pipe in his hand? And they kind of go, well, yeah, it can mean that, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's a bit like we have in rock and roll, wah, bam, baloo, bam, baloo, bam, boom, It doesn't mean anything, like bada bing, I said, I thought that was Italian, because that's just like whatever,
Yeah.
So there's a beauty to that as well, in it. So
it's amazing how international, or like universal the musical kind of attributes are. That's great to think that like Seanachai singing is comparable to jazz,
Yeah, but wasn't there a guy, he was there from New York, Daniel Cassidy, who wrote the book How the Irish Invented Slang?
Yes, sure. Smithereens and galore and all of these words. Yeah,
and even rock and roll, like Rockamage, Let's Go. So
let's go, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know, can we take credit for everything now? But we will certainly try.
Yeah, that's it. But even the word snazzy, which we thought was maybe have come from the Hebrew word, but schnoss, like polish, like
yeah.
Stuff, yeah.
No, it's a good book. It is a good book. It's fun.
Yeah. I think it's good reading it when people read it, because a lot of the things he said were 3/4 of the way there. But when you read them, when you know about the different dialectical differences up and down the country, you can say, oh, that makes more sense when you put it in Donegal Irish or Kerry Irish or whatever. It can make sense, like.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I'll try a story now, and it has a few different instruments in it. And I'll see how I can get on. So we're coming to the end of April and the start of May. And it was kind of May Eve is a bit like the other end of the year from Halloween. So everyone knows on Halloween, it's a great time. They say that on Halloween night that the fairies and the ghosts and the goblins can roam through the sky freely, And I didn't know till recently, but May Eve was kind of the opposite. it was kind of like the fairies and the ghosts and the goblins that have been out all winter. Now they kind of go back into nature and they disappear because it's summer where it's kind of more light-hearted buzz. So May Eve has its own magic and different parts of the country celebrated in different ways. Like Westport in County Mayo, people will leave flowers outside each other's doors, you know, and you do it as a kind of a, you know, you do it, but you don't say who's doing it. So it could be kind of like the fairies have suddenly left flowers. It's just really a celebration of nature and the coming of summer. And down here in Clare, what people will do is they'll put up the maybough, which is a certain tree. Now, it can be any tree. It can be chestnut or ash, but staying in other parts of the country in Waterford, they will actually plant a May tree. So I still don't know what kind of a tree that is. I just saw that online recently. But there's a kind of a bit of a story that I'm working on from a bit of a story that I heard that I'll try now. And it's like this. So down here in the glen, there's great music to be heard now and again. And you wouldn't know where that music comes from. You just hear it in the distance. But particularly on a May Eve or the last night of April, you'd hear choir music. Some say it's when all the animals might gather. Because you see, they might come together in their fairy form and change into animal. Or they might come together in their animal form and change into their fairy form. Because you might hear the trees kind of gently swinging and moving and the odd tap of wood. And then you might see the dolphins coming in from the sea or the seals coming up. And as we all know, seals can change into mermaids when they come close to the shore. And what you would have then is, you know, a flock of swans or a murder of crows. They'd land out of the trees and they'd be making an awful cackle. They'd be like hopping and swinging and shouting. And then out of nowhere, the goat. And when all the animals had assembled and the king is there himself, the great stag, the great Irish stag, will be there, announced his arrival. And then coming in from afar, riding on a great swan would be herself. The queen of the fairies coming in on a white swan. And as she sweeps gracefully off the neck of a swan, all the animals are assembled and it'll be their last night in their fairy form before they change and move. And so suddenly the goat must announce this. Up steps the goat and he clears his throat and he... Oh, yes, indeed. No, he says, all below and all begin. Let this night of magic now begin. And suddenly they'll start dancing and hopping. And you wouldn't believe the kind of fairy music that'd be going, hopping and jigging and dancing and go to go. And all around and all within the fairy magic now begins, and they dance around and happen all night until the break of day at May Eve, when summer has announced. And suddenly the fairies, some of them will change back into birds. The great stag will retreat back into the woods. The goat clears his throat once again and announces second time again that it is time for them all to leave and go back into their animal form. The animals will act normal again and the fairies might not be seen again till Halloween. And you see, that's a choir music that is played that night. And not many people have heard it or lived to tell the tale, except maybe a few around here.
I love it.
You like it?
Bealtaine Eve, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's a big thing in Kerry, Bealtaine, the May Eve for...
Oh, that's right. You've got the Bealtaine Festival,
and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's actually quite a, not a negative, you know, but it's strange that, as you say, it's the total opposite end, realistically, like from Halloween, but that was the night you could curse your neighbour, you know, like, or put an egg into their farm or into their premises, and that would destroy the harvest for the year, or the milk would curdle, or, you know, so but
I suppose the agricultural communities be getting ready for summer.
Yeah.
So there'd be a bit of I noticed myself, it's only this year and last year I've been doing the garden with COVID, like, but I noticed now people be ringing me and I'd be saying, geez, I have to plant spuds and I have to get this in. There's all that anxiety about summer. So
well, and you're dependent on the calendar and the weather, and you know,
there's a lot riding on it this time of year. You know, the weather can be changeable, and if you get a bad you know, if you don't get your spuds done, or if you got an attack from a certain pest, you know, it could change the whole summer. Like a lot of, I see the farmers as well get anxious, you know, because they've just come out of lambing season, calving season. They're putting out manure now. There's a lot of preparation for summer taking place. Yeah, you're right. It is a funny one. Yeah. It's a magical one. So I'm delighted you like that story, because that's just a new one we're working on now this week.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I love it.
My battery's just gone down to 1 there. I might just change over to the phone for the last bit.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see how I'll do that now. I'll just go in the same link. Okay?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm joining it now.
Okay, that's the joys of modern technology.
Yep.
Yeah, I see you. Okay, you're in. So you can shut off the other one if you like.
That's great, yeah.
Okay, bear with us. We're swapping technology mediums. No, you should be in.
Am I in there now?
Just can't see. Yeah, there you are. Lovely.
Great.
Okay, good. No, you turned off your camera.
Did I?
Yeah.
Is it back now?
No.
Let me see.
Now you're back. You're lovely.
Ah, yeah, there it is. Good job.
Good. Ceart galore then, Lanarag.
Okay. All right. Let me see now what other ones we'll do. Okay. Seeing as you're from Kerry, I'll do a quick set of polkas.
I know, we're always associated with the polkas.
But they're great though. They're great outbeat. Hard to beat the full polkas, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it is. It's true. We have a monthly, we used to before COVID, a monthly session with some of the Cotas Cultori, you know, and they'd always do a few Kerry polkas.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. Great stuff.
But, you know, I was just thinking, like, it's amazing that this is how our people have gathered for over 1,000 years. You know, and I mean, it's sad in a way that we're doing it through screens and phones and computers, but it is amazing. Like, I do think sitting around in a group and listening to stories and music together is sort, you know, the communalism of that is very powerful, I think, even though we're all on our own in our sitting rooms, you know. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's
still,
great.
You know, Zoom has got us through this until we see each other again, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Ireland really embraced, you know, the arts, and Culture Ireland in particular, who are sponsoring tonight, did a massive, you know, all of those concerts that they did every week, and it, you know, it has, as you say, sustained communities, I think. But I'm delighted that you're keeping this traditional sort of approach to it alive, you know. So that's very good.
Yeah, I'm enjoying, like, what I'm enjoying about it is the it's just the crack that would say it's nice. Like, I don't have to go too far to kind of play. You know, I'm just going to move out into the car so that the phone won't go dead. The solar power in the caravan is not great. So,
well, especially at midnight.
Yeah, I know.
It is hard to kind of keep the batteries loaded, like.
Yeah, that's the only thing, is the battery vibe. Everything else is grand, you know. Like, I suppose most people now live in cities, and you're hooked up to electricity. But with the COVID thing, I could no longer afford to live in Dublin. So I moved back to my family farm. And with the farm comes the beauty of it is living out the country, you know, like it's a dream. But the other reality is like, you know, trying to get anything hooked up like to electricity, you know, it takes ages. You have to move that wall and plug in that, and they won't wire up a mobile home so to get planning permission for the house. And then, so there's a whole, you know yourself, like getting anything done in Ireland.
Yeah,
it's so different.
Yeah, well, I was watching Bill Maher the other day. It took him over 1,000 days to get solar panels connected in California. So I think bureaucracy is everywhere.
Yeah, probably is indeed. Yeah, bureaucracy is everywhere.
But it's great, you know, I mean, my God. So this, I mean, what you're doing now is even more traditional. You're sitting in the dark telling stories.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why the stories would go on so long in the old days. It's because you see, somebody would have to go, you'd go to somebody's house and they would do a story. But like that story might go on, you'd come back the following night to hear the second half of the story, you know?
Yeah.
And there was once a traveling tinsmith and fiddle player in Donegal. I don't know if it was Johnny Doherty, but one of the lads, and he got to some village and he started telling some big long story. There's a story called Shocked, Schläft in the Nor, the 7 hills of gold, you know, and he went to such detail that he knocked a night out of each hill and he was there for a week. And that's because he was getting good lodgings and good food, and he may have had good company in this village, in this house. So people would come. That was the Netflix of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
God, yeah. But weren't you really dependent on the kindness of strangers going house to house telling stories?
Yeah. I could try a big long story now, will I?
You do? I'd love it, yeah. Or we'd love it.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got power here off the car.
Good.
So it's kind of more like a spoken word piece. So it's called The Horse Dance. And it's about this guy on at Christmas. And he does the dance. All right. Well, there was a man in our town called Eugene Flynn. And Eugene Flynn was tall and thin. Tall and thin was Eugene Flynn with a mop of curly blonde on his head. Mop of curly blonde hair in his head. He was a gentleman. A gentleman was Eugene Flynn, except for when he had drink taken. For when he had drink taken, there was no sense to his mind at all. His eyes would go into a vacant stare, like he was looking at something 100 yards away. And poor old Eugene Flynn, he tell you himself like he wasn't an alcoholic. He was just hyperglycemic. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he was hyperglycemic. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was hyperglycemic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and the poor creature, he got into trouble, and he was above in Dublin. He was in jail, and he rang home his mother one Christmas from the jail in Dublin. He said, "Mother, I'm coming home for Christmas. What do you want for Christmas?" And his mother said, Monsieur Eugene, I want only one little thing for Christmas." "What's that, mother?" "Anything you want." Eugene, I want one thing for Christmas. I want you not to come home for Christmas." Oh, and that broke his heart. "Oh, but mother, I'll be good. And I'll be good, mother." "No, you won't, for if you come home, you'll go to town, you'll drink the drop down." "I won't, mother, I'll be good." But came home anyway. And he came home for Christmas, and he was good for Christmas. He spent Christmas Eve at home with the mother. They spent the whole time at home watching the telly. And the next day, Christmas Day, she cooked him the full Irish breakfast. Rashers, sausages, black pudding, and white black pudding. The whole lot. And then, it wasn't long after the breakfast, she came out with the Christmas dinner. Turkey, ham, potatoes, chips, mashed potatoes, potato croquet, and some roast potatoes. And he was so full of all that. He was mad, you see. He was kind of craving something sweet then. But you see, he was hyperglycemic. Do you know what I mean? Like, we never knew, was he hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic. He was just hyperglycemic. He was craving for something that would help him digest a big dinner. Like, you know, a bit of chocolate or a brandy and port or something. But he was so kind of dangerously hypoglycemic. If he had something sweet, he'd want like maybe a cup of tea, and then he'd want a cup of sugar in the tea, have a coffee, have a cigarette, smoke a joint. Wouldn't be long before he'd be back drinking again. So anyway, he was rolling around in his belly, and he had to do something with his energy. So he started building an extension at the back of the mother's house. It was during the era which is now known as the Celtic Tiger, when the only way an Irishman could prove himself was by getting covered in concrete, building something of no use to anyone.
And out at the back of the house he was then, and he covered in concrete, covered in shite. Worked all day and he worked all night, and he covered in concrete, covered in shite. And then the next day, the day after Christmas Day, would be St. Stephen's Day, or as you know, in some countries called Boxing Day. It's the day when, you know, the young people go around to the pubs in the town and they singing, the wren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day was caught in the furs. Up with the kettle and down with the pan, will you give us some money to bury the wren? Chased the wren from rock to rock, chased him into a public shop. Dipped his nose in a bottle of beer, we wish you all a happy new year. And he could hear the music coming up from the town and it calling him. And he said to his mother, he said, Mother, I have to go to town for a bag of cement. Oh, Mushin Tojin, please don't go to town. For if you go to town, you'll drink to drop down. You'll bring shame and embarrassment on the family again. I won't, Mother, I won't. I'm only going into town to get the bag of cement. So he sat into the car. Vroom, vroom, vroom. But the car wouldn't start, for his mother had taken out the distributor cable and thrown it into the lake. So I sat up in the motorbike. But the motorbike wouldn't start, for his mother had put sand into the petrol tank. So I sat up on the tractor. But the tractor wouldn't start either, for somebody had peed into the diesel tank. So he had no choice then but to jump above the horse. And down through the town he came on a great big piebald horse, and he did not look left or right. Oh no, he went straight through the town on the white piebald horse. And the people inside in the pubs that were singing them and gathering the music for St. Stephen's Day, the wren, the king of all birds, well, they looked out the window and they said, look, there goes Eugene. And he going up the town on the white piebald horse. And he did not look left or right. Oh no, he had no interest in the pubs. He went turned at the top of the town. He went down into the quarry. He got the bag of cement. He put the bag of cement above in his shoulder, and he was going straight home then to finish the extension on the house. But what should happen then? But the wind blew. And the wind blew again. And the wind blew a third time. And you know, the wild wind blowing South Mayo, down came the rain and the sleet and the snow. And soon enough, the bag of cement that was above in his shoulder, well, it burst open with the rain, and it turned him into a concrete boulder. And there he stood, brave and bold. There he was at the top of the town as the rain and the snow and the sleet came down. There he stood, brave and bold. A concrete-covered statue. He was frozen to the cold. And the people looked out the window of the pub, and they went, look up at the top of the town. And they saw him. And they were proud, because all across England, statues of Wellington above in his horse. All across France, statues of Napoleon above in his horse. But for that 45 seconds, on that cold St. Stephen's Day, we had our own statue of the Eugene above in his horse. And we thought we'd have him forever. What should suddenly happen then? But the wind blew. And the wind blew again. And the wind blew a third time. And suddenly the horse took a gallop, and the horse took a wallop, and the horse took a gallop, and the horse took a wallop, and he galloped up, galloped down, galloped all around the town. He galloped up, he galloped down, he galloped all around the town. But he knocked on the door of the first pub. But they wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't let him in. Knocked on the door of the second pub. They wouldn't let him in. Wouldn't even give him gin. And he had to go down to the bottom of the town and knock on the door of the third little pub at the bottom of the town, which was only a dirty little she-bean on the edge of the town. And he knocked on the door. They wouldn't let him in. So he was shouting in the letterbox, let me in, he says, let me in. I'll die. I'm frozen to the cold. And the barman looked out of the bar and said, we won't let you in, Eugene, for your mother has rang every pub in this town and told her not to let you in. Please let me in. I'll die of pneumonia. And the barman looked out of the bar and said, ha! Do you hear that, lads? pneumonia, pneumonia. Oh, yeah. Did you all learn that word when you were working in London on the pneumatic drill? Did you? Ha! Tis the same with you every year. Every Christmas, tis the same with you, Eugene. Tisn't your pneumonia, tis your hypochondria. Tis. You're there working abroad, mixing up concrete, and like with the lads from Connemara on the JCB. Please let me in, or I'll die of hypothermia. Then suddenly, what should happen but the wind blew, and the horse kicked open the door, and into the pub he came, frozen to the cold, half kind of abominable snowman, half kind of like John Wayne walking up to the counter of the bar. Drink, he said, give me a drink. Oh, we can't give you drinks, said the barman. Your mother has rang every pub in this town and told us not to give you a drink. Oh, please give me a drink. So they put on the kettle for a cup of tea. And the kettle was so slow to boil. Oh my God, and the anxiety of Dugin when you're there waiting for the drink, and people around looking at him said, how do I give him something? Give him. So you couldn't refuse a man a drink on St. Stephen's Day. So give him hot port. Sure, 'tis only hot water and piss, French wine. So they said, oh, look, don't ruin that port with hot water. Give him brandy and port. So they gave him brandy and port, and he threw it back. And the colour came back in one of his eyes. He looked like if you ever took a frozen prawn out of the freezer and put it in the microwave for just not long enough, with the steam rising out of his head, and he half frozen and half thawed out. Oh, look, a bird never flew in one wing. Give him another drink, but don't let him sing. So he threw back a second one. Another brandy and port, and the colour came back in his other eyes. And you could kind of see the devil dancing in his eyes then, like he was about to start fighting or causing trouble. And he was going and said, oh, carefully, Jock and Durish. Jock and Durish is one for the road, one for the right. Jig 3, the pork is in sides. Give him one for the road and the horse he rode in on. So they give him the third drink then. And that was 3 doubles, so it was 6. And another half one then, 7 for good luck. And he was going out the door then, he was. And he looked into the fire. But whatever way he moved, suddenly the heat of the fire heated his face, and a crack of sweat rolled down his concrete-covered nose and into his mouth. And as he tasted his own salty-covered sweat, something odd happened in the brain chemistry of his head, like the neuroscience behind his frontal lobe started to kind of interact as the left brain switched with the right brain, and something in his cerebral cortex went kind of cuckoo, and suddenly a great big orb of alcohol erupted from his stomach like a bullet from Belmullet came up out of his gullet. A lump of vomit like Halley's Comet landed down his mouth and out his mouth and down his spout and landed into his fire and burst into flames. A great lump of fire erected from the alcohol that came out of his body. He looked up at the telly. He burst it with his welly. Come out, let you know, and dance with me. But everyone said, hey, Eugene, we don't know your dance. You don't know my dance. Everybody knows the harsh dance. Then he jumped again, and he jumped round like a little red hen. Jumped 4 5 feet off the ground, then he jumped, then he fell, then he jumped around. Well, he jumped, then he jumped, then he jumped again. Jumped around like a little red hen, and he jumped 4 5 feet off the ground, then he jumped, then he fell, then he jumped around. Then suddenly he slipped, and suddenly he tripped, and he landed bang into the fire. Pull him out to the barman, couldn't pull him out. Pull him out to the barman, couldn't pull him out. Pull him out to the barman, couldn't pull him out. He was stuck like a cork in a bottle of stout. The barman looked out of his bar. What'll I do now? There he is, dead in the fireplace. This is the one day in the year that I make a few pounds selling drink, St. Stephen's Day. And this lad comes into the pub. His mother rang, told us not to give him drink. We gave him drink, and now he's dead inside in the fireplace. Oh God, said the barman, what'll we do? Ring the fire brigade from Castlebar. Don't mind the fire brigade from Castlebar. Ring the priest from Galway town. Don't mind the priest from Galway town. Bring in the bishop from Tuam. Don't mind the bishop from Tuam. Oh, Jesus Christ, what will we do? And then, suddenly, what should happen? But as a great big horse's eyeball looked in the window of the pub, but the wind blew. And the wind blew again. And the wind blew a third time. And the wind came in under the door, and the flames of the fire grew more and more, and the draft came in from under the door, and the flames of the fire grew more and more, and suddenly he leapt up from the flames like a phoenix rising from the flames, with his concrete-covered jacket still burning in the hames. He said, "One more time for the horse that's high." Thank you.
Well, that was a workout.
That was a workout.
And talk about verbal gymnastics, I loved it.
Yeah, there was a lot in that one.
But you know, actually, like, it's funny watching you do it. You can kind of see the craft in telling a story, like the repetition and the building. You know, like there's a method to it too, I think. Sorry, there's terrible police alarms going off outside my window.
Thanks. It is, and it's kind of like the there's a whole rhythm to it that when I get going, I can't stop either.
Well, but I think it helps you to remember it probably too, you know, because it takes over a little bit. Yeah,
I suppose I'm nearly 10 years doing that one, so it has fallen into its own. It takes off. Like, even if I decided in the morning, oh, I'm not going to say that, or I'll change this, it's in its own rhythm where it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And it happened. It was kind of roughly based on a bit of a true story.
Oh.
So I had that tune written. There was always a 2-part tune, and pretty simple tune, like. And then I put the 3rd part onto it, and then someone says, "What's it called?" I said, "It's a horse dance." And me and my brother, when we were young, we used to go. I mean, you're from Kerry, so the rain is very big in Kerry, and also in Mayo, where I grew up. So we'd be doing the shop. We always thought it was amazing that we could do every house in our parish, and you wouldn't make a fraction of what you'd make doing one pub, you know, because you'd go around house to house collecting money and saying, "Stephen said the rent." And I wasn't that good at football, so this was the one day of the year that I could actually go and make. Yeah, exactly. This was my day. Like, I would have the guitar and the fiddle, the tin whistles, the accordion, the whole lot. But one time I was of drinking age, so I must have been 18 or 19. And in those days, we got lazy. We didn't do as many houses in the parish. We just do the 4 pubs, and we'd make a few £100 each. Like, but we were in one pub, and there was this crazy guy. Poor man is dead since, but he wouldn't let us leave the pub. He kept buying us more drink and wanted us to stay. But he fell into the fire, and he rolled out of it. And we were telling someone else the story, and he said, "Did he not burn when he went into the fire?" And we said, "No, sure, you know that lad. His jacket is covered in concrete. He's inflammable." And that was the joke then. And then I used to be playing the tune, and I used to tell a bit of a story before the tune. And then one night, it was culture night in Galway City. I think it was 2007, 2008, so like 10 or 15 years ago. And it was in the middle of the tune. I just jumped back on the microphone and started spitting out bits of the story and the details, and then it just became a piece. Like, and
no, that's brilliant.
It's good crack, isn't it? I hope it wasn't too fast there for any team members, everyone.
No, I know. I feel maybe some of our audience weren't able to keep up, but I can explain it later.
It's
but actually, you know, I think part of the fun is that you don't get all of it. You know, like, you know, it's a bigger thing. Yeah.
It's like we were talking with the Portruck Bale, or the PC Kjol, where that it kind of takes off on a rhythm where it's just bits of imagery. It's funny because in Dublin and Limerick now, spoken word is kind of like a huge art form. You know, you hear that mentioned a lot now but I always remind people that, well, in rural Ireland and certainly here in the West Coast, we've always had a sense of spoken word, but it's been more in the storytelling, you know?
Oh, sure, Eamon Kelly and all them used to be on TV, like, you know, when we were young. Yeah. Well, not when I was young, but, you know, before. But Rita says she's enjoying it very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks a million, Rita. I hope that wasn't too fast now for you.
I know that when I used to do that in Australia, they'd say, "Can you slow down, mate?"
Yeah.
It would be way too
I bet
fast.
you couldn't. You probably wouldn't remember the words if you just slow down.
You could try, yeah.
Because then you have to think
try,
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a long one too. It's about 20 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say it was long. Yeah.
I just thought because
very funny.
to do something different from the last time, and also because we were talking about how like years ago with storytelling, they would go for nights, 2 or 3 nights for one story alone,
Yeah.
And I'm working on a project in Doolin. We're translating old stories from Irish. And they're so long and so much detail because people had nothing else like.
Yeah.
It was the Netflix of the time,
Yeah. Well, and when you think too, in a way, like how limited their worldview was, like that a storyteller that maybe had seen something in another part of the country, he has to describe it in great detail, or like to describe a landscape that's almost unimaginable to someone who hasn't seen it.
Exactly. Yeah,
you'd have to give a lot of detail,
especially stories that came in off the boats, because we have a lot of stories here that are common to Greek culture and also to Icelandic and Scandinavian. Oh, there's Bob. And
Bob says you're a treasure.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Cheers.
Yeah. Well, so you were though recognized by Culture Ireland as one of these artists to kind of showcase, and we're delighted they provided the museum with a grant to bring you back. So,
brilliant.
So they are recognizing the talent, not only, as I say, that you're a contemporary, but it's an ancient art form what you're doing. So I think that's brilliant.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a funny one. Like I said, a lot of the old stories are just so long.
Yeah.
Like even when we translate them into English, they can still be like 30 pages. And like sometimes repetition is cool, like the way we did it in that last story. But in some of them, it can just have the same going on and change one little thing all the time. Nowadays people ask me, if I was doing radio interviews, they said, "Oh, can you do a story under 90 seconds?" I say, "You can't. Like that's a joke. Like in every sense of the word, you can't do it under 90 seconds. It's not a meme or a meme or a meme. There is. So I'm delighted there now that that we've taken the time tonight to listen to some of those stories, like Kilch the Fiend and the Horse Dance and the longer ones, like
No, me too. I appreciate it. And we said we might have you back around. I would love to get your Halloween stories. I think you've probably got stories. But actually, it was interesting. We just marked Peg Sayers' birthday or death. I don't even know what it was lately. And one of the things that came out of that, of course, you and I would have studied her at school. And I actually didn't mind the book, but it is known for, this one dying and that one dying and somebody else leaving. But she was actually very funny. So like the folklore archives and in Dukas, they're the Bailadish archives, they have amazing stories from her where she was humorous, but we never see that aspect because whoever collected the stories, they only kind of published the sad ones, So I'm glad if you're translating those things, you'll come across interesting ones, that are not the typical.
Yeah, sometimes the humor is lost. People don't see the humor in things she says either, like the way she'd say, and I have one leg in the grave and the other on the edge of it. There was so much musicality, and sometimes stuff didn't get translated with much humor. It was translated, and that's part of bringing the music and the rhythm into it. For me, anyway, everyone has their own angle. Other people bring drama into it. Other people, will stay very faithful to the text. A lot of the modern storytellers will all have a different take on it. And for me, it's about bringing the music and the rhythm. I suppose that's what I know. That's what's easy, or what's natural for me. And like I must send you as well, Liz. My father did these recordings with Martin Hayes, the fiddle player from East Clare. So my father did 4 stories with Hayes doing the music. So that's available on CD, but it's on tape, but it's not widely available. So, but I learned the story Kilch the Fiend that I did earlier.
That's a fabulous one.
And then I put the music in it myself. So it's interesting. Every generation will have a different take on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great now that people are starting to see that with Peg Sayers. I think TG Carr just did a documentary about her.
They did, yeah. And I mean, it is funny because, my God, when you think about kids that are born, even like 20-year-olds have never not had the internet, or phones. So it's an amazing thing to try to bring the older, like at least, I grew up in the 80s, like in a small town in Kerry. There was a lot of things we didn't know and a lot of things that were still being done how they were done in the 50s, or, and so you wonder about, like Eddie Lenihan visits the Stole a good bit because he's originally a Kerryman, but he's living in Clare as well.
Yeah, from Brosna, was he?
Yeah. So we grew up, with him coming to the town, and the schools would bring him in, to tell stories. But I wonder about kids today, like have they the attention span to sit for an hour and listen to just a guy talking? You know, it's so we have to try and work on that.
You'd be surprised. Like, I think if the story is energetic, you do, you know. Like we did a night over in Doolin where I had to do a load of the old stories. And I was doing one that I mentioned earlier, Shocked Slave to the North, the 7 Hills of Gold. And it goes on forever. And I was trying to get it done under like 15 or 20 minutes, you know, from like a 4 or 5 hour story. Like, but, you know, I managed, people were saying to me, they were shocked that we managed to keep their attention with it, you know. And what we did was, you know, I'd say things like, well, the man was calling all the birds, and as he blew the long horn, he called the eagle, and he blew it the first time, the eagle didn't come. He blew it the second time, the eagle didn't come. He blew his horn the third time, the eagle didn't come. Oh, eagle, why did you not come? And the eagle turned up, and the eagle said, well, I saw the missed call, but I was ignoring you the first 2 times, and then I came the third time. You're kind of allowed. You're allowed.
But you know, I do think there is something magical. Like, tell me a story has to be, you know, a universal kind of, and children especially, you probably can tap into that. I'm just seeing loads of comments on Facebook that they're loving it. One of the members, Paul, is on the board. I wonder if adults can sit still and listen to without the phone. And someone mentioned Miles Nagapoline. Do anyone here on Zoom have a question, or anyone on Facebook? Judy says you know, thank you so much for this. Love it. So if anyone does have a quick question, because I know it's like 1:30 in the morning for you. So it's. Oh
my God, is it gone? Are we gone an hour and a half? Wow.
No, but we're gone an hour. No, it's only 10 minutes after 1. Yeah.
10 minutes after 1. Okay.
So if anyone has a quick question or comment, I'm sure you'll take that.
Yeah. All comments welcome.
This was wonderful. Zoom is such a gift for letting us have events like that. It's true, Noreen. Yeah,
it is good crack. Yeah.
You know, we worried about it at the start. You know, about not getting together and how could we cope and stuff. But it has allowed us to get together and you know, there's people on the call that that are not in Albany. You know, so we would never have had them kind of without Zoom. So it is great. Nolene wants to know, where do you do yours? I guess perform, like, but you know, you do arts festivals and stuff around Ireland, do you?
Yeah, I do. Usually when I have a new show, I do it in small places. Like I do 30-seater venues. So, you know, sometimes the back of pubs often have little 30-seater venues, you know, like little places where traditional musicians would play. Then when the show is kind of pretty good, like if I have 5 or 10 good stories, I'll go to Dublin. There's a venue called the Cobblestones. It's more of a traditional venue. And then I might, in Dublin, being our biggest city, obviously, with a million people, you can kind of do 5 nights. And after you've done a show for 5 nights, then it gets quite solid. So you have all the bits together. Then if it was a show that might work internationally, I go to the Edinburgh Fringe, where, you know, you get reviews and you get international bookings and stuff. But then if it's just a show I like doing around Ireland, then I can do the arts festivals. So Sligo is great. Festivals that prioritize traditional arts. So like I wouldn't get much work in Galway in the summer. Theirs is more of an international one, we'll say. But like around Clare, Sligo, Mayo, it's a great festival in Achill Island. There's a few new storytelling festivals. I haven't been to the one in Sneem. There's a new one down your way, Nolly's in Sneem, isn't there? There's a storytelling festival. I haven't been to that one now yet.
And actually, in Listowel, the Writers' Week or the Kerry Writers Museum are setting one up as well.
Yeah. Is that separate from the Listowel Writers' Week?
It is, yeah. They're technically the museum that's housed in the grounds of the castle, you know, and they have all the museum, right? John B. Keane and all the writers. You should contact Cara Trench. She's managing that there.
Oh, you must send me her detail. I'll give her a shout. Yeah. There was a quick one, a story about John B. Keane. I don't know if it's true or not, but they said that during the summer when he had the pub down in Listowel, there was a few people that were hiking on the mountain. I think they were Germans, and they came down from the mountain. Would it be Mount Brandon or one of those? And
Killarney.
And they got to John B. Keane's pub, which I know is up in Listowel, and they were starving, but they wanted to see this famous playwright's pub. So they came in anyway, and only 1 or 2 of them ordered pints. They were really hungry. And of course, you know, in Ireland, like, it's hard to get food anywhere. Like, and one of the German people said to John B. Keane, said, "Well, very hungry. If you have any food." And he said, "Oh, Jez, I've only a few old sandwiches there. There was an old 21st birthday in here last night. I'll see if I answer in the back." So he brings out these plates, and a few old like chicken sandwiches. So I said, "Oh, thank you very much. That's okay, very nice." And you met the German is eating sandwich. It's nice. He's eating this old chicken sandwich. He goes, "It's nice." He said, "I have never eaten owl before." Like, I have a few owl sandwiches, like owl. Like,
oh my God, I love it.
I don't know if it's true or not. No.
I've never heard that one before. That's brilliant. I'll have to bring it home to the stone and tell them.
Yeah, it's just, the way they say that I have a few old sandwiches there.
Yeah. So I say that myself. Yeah, that's funny.
Just crack, yeah.
So no one has a question. It looks like no one on Facebook. They're all thanking you. And is anyone else on Zoom got a question? No, looks like. Do you want to do one for the road, Aindrias? Something?
Yeah, sure. Well, I just finish up with a bit of a song.
Doris.
Oh, Jock and Doris.
Without a joke.
Right. There's one called "The Rare Old Motor Jew." I'll do the first verse in Irish, and then I'll do the rest of it in English.
Okay.
Is my winter as an clár. Cach me am go senstigok, agus hosa dungal. Ach na bori tam shigoni, casu kiol mar lachiko. Achis fiarren, she conde wio. The water flows and the grass is growing a free and easy way. Give men a feather railroad stuff, it's mid near Galway Bay. From Galway from Donegal and Sligo they too. We'll give them the step and we'll take a step on the railroad mountain Jew. Hey, little dum to the but I lead them there. And the other dum to the but I lead them there. But now use the pen, never run of its praises high. Have sweet puckchin from Mergin, you can drink it till you die. For away with pills, it'll cure all ills, begging to string Jew. At Tom would always drink a bowl or a buck full of Mountain Dew. Hey, I dum to the little dum to the but I lead them there. I dum to the little dum to the but I lead them there. Thank you.
You wanted to drop a juice in the phone or anything after us?
Yeah.
Siobhan says you're getting her singing. And Bob says he listens to the records of the Clancy brothers singing this as a kid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did a great version of that. And of course, they influenced Bob Dylan with stuff like that too.
Yeah. So listen, thank you so much in the middle of the night for joining us, and everyone here on Zoom and in on Facebook. And I'm so sorry for draining all your power from your devices, but hopefully tomorrow will be sunny and it'll be recharged.
All the neighbours are awake. No, it's great.
I know. Good, that's good for them. Get a start on the day. So I'll be in touch with you. And Noreen says thank you. Totally wonderful evening. It was a lovely evening. You know, the only way it would be better is if we were all together in person. But hopefully you'll get over and we'll have a few nights in the museum. I think we'd have great
I still have the visa from the time I met you when I was working on that other job. So
yeah.
Still legal.
Good. So as soon as we can travel, we'll have you over. And
it's great getting to know you all in Albany.
So thanks everyone for joining. We're back on Monday night. I'm giving a talk about the American involvement in the 1916 Rising, and then on Wednesday we have Daryl McGrath, and she's going to talk about her husband Jim's writings. He was a writer for the Times Union and an editor, and he wrote a good bit about the Good Friday Agreement and the first time Jerry Adams came to Albany. And then I think that's it for a while. The following Monday, we're doing the military aspect of the 1916 Rising with the state military historian, Bob Mulligan. So we've a lot on. Keep an eye on our Facebook and website, and we'll definitely have Aindrias back. And, get ready for Bealtaine, everyone. I'm glad you're
yeah.
Stay well, Aindrias, and have hopefully a restful night now that you're going to bed.
Great stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Great to see you.
Thank you, that's all great. Good night, everyone.
Good luck. See you, Jack. See you guys.
Care. See you soon.
Yeah, thanks. And terrific performance.
Wasn't it great?
Thanks, Jack. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ihawa.